Hello, we are Daniel Mella and my classmate Matias Martinez, and in this task we will address the mental health of our country and how it affects teachers and students in our current educational system. So, the mental state of people influences the way they react and perform on different tasks. In fact, according to the Association of Mental Health of Canada, mental health plays a vital role in human life. It is not only important but essential for the survival as a social being. Therefore, mental health is not something that we can ignore or we can neglect people that suffer from mental illness, especially if those people are students who are the future of our country.
Following what my classmate said, we need to recognize that the educational system nowadays faces some big challenges, one of them being the neglection of mental health. Throughout this presentation and during our role play, we will present to you some of the challenges that have been present during the development of the issue on mental health. Some of the key elements that affect it will also be present during our role play, but most importantly, we will present to you the mental health issues regarding teachers and students. We will deal with anxiety and stress. The role play will represent the reality of the Chilean educational system, and throughout the role play and during the last part of this presentation, we will present to you some strategies to deal with anxiety and stress, and most importantly with other issues regarding mental health and issues with mental health.
So in terms of the social aspects that can affect mental health of teachers and students, as a society we tend to see mental illness as we see a deadly disease. Therefore, we tend to leave aside those we think are infected and alienate them from the social spheres. People tend to see other people with mental issues as unpredictable, dangerous, and aggressive. However, a lot of research have shown that people with mental issues are not more aggressive or unpredictable than normal people. Particularly in our society, stress and anxiety are the most important issues today. In fact, a study made by Minsal shows that 80% of the population have suffered from stress. 22% of the population have suffered from a psychiatric disorder, and 17% of the population have suffered from depression. Government authorities have done little or nothing to address this problem, and this can be reflected on the high rates of suicide that are today in our current society. For example, based on a research, the second deadliest cause in our country is suicide after traffic accidents. Additionally, our economical system doesn't help to have a healthy state of mind. Since we have a neoliberal system, we tend to compete with each other, which leads to having stress and anxiety that is unnecessary.
Mr. Daniel, please come sit over here.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Okay, so can we do this quick? I have a meeting in an hour. So what did my son do this time?
He didn't do anything in particular, but the school community is very worried about your son, and to be more specific, your son's mental health.
Are you saying my son is crazy?
Not at all. Talking about mental health does not necessarily mean that someone is crazy. But still, your son has been very worried about pretty much everything. He's very twitchy and shaky. And lately he has been throwing temper tantrums in the middle of the class out of very small provocations.
Well, I think that's very normal when we are a little bit stressed out. So I think he just has to embrace it, and he just has to be stronger.
I don't want to offend you, sir, but you need to remember, your son is just a teenager. He's just a kid. This is a very important stage of his life. Being in constant stress and feeling anxious all the time will only lead to consequences that will last for the rest of his life.
Well, now that you mentioned that, he's been having he's been a little bit sad lately. He's been having some eating disorders, and he has been more aggressive. But that is the way we live. Our society is like that. We are in a constant rush, and the only thing that matters today is grades. So if he gets good grades, I don't care about if he is feeling well.
I don't want to sound rude, but you also need to remember, as I already said, that he's just a teenager. He's basically a kid. If we don't do anything now, these harmful behaviors will only intensify.
Okay, so what do you propose?
Okay, so the reason why we called you here is not only because of your son, but because you're the president of the Parent Center.
Okay.
So not only your son is the one that has been showing these harmful behaviors and anxious state of mind, but also other students have been showing the same type of behavior. Which is why, as teachers, we want to propose an action plan or a course of action to address these issues.
Okay, sure, count me in. I mean, I know I can be a little bit harsh sometimes, but that was the way I was raised. If I had a problem, I just had to live with it. If I was stressed out, I just had to suck it up. And basically nowadays, I only live with the help of pills. And lately, I've been really depressed, and I was thinking about ending my life actually.
Have you ever heard about PTSD?
Not really. What is it?
Post-traumatic stress disorder. It is a psychiatric disorder, which people suffer after suffering or witnessing a traumatic event. For example, soldiers suffer from this after going to war. People suffer from this after witnessing or being a part of a natural disaster. And also people suffer from this after very traumatic accidents, for example.
Okay, but let's be real. I mean, we are not in a war zone, nor we are in a natural disaster.
But your son is showing the same issues that you're showing right now, and your son is just a teenager. Your son is basically suffering from PTSD, and he's just in school. So the problem here is that your son is basically seeing school as a war zone. And not only your son, as I mentioned before, other students are suffering from the same thing, the same issue.
Okay, I get it. Okay, sure. So what is the plan, the action plan?
First of all, we want to guide ourselves thanks to based on a research made by the Mental Health Institute of Canada. They suggest that first we start off by doing a mood tracker. This will allow students to identify the issues or the actions that make them feel sad, anxious, stressed, angry, and in other cases even happy. This will allow students to identify the issues that throughout the day and even throughout the week lead them to this anxious state of mind and this stressed behavior that leads to other harmful actions.
Okay, so that's a good strategy to do at home with parents, so we can know what our sons or daughters are going through. But what do you propose to do here in the school?
Okay, so after doing this activity that will allow students to identify these issues, we need to tackle the issues. Okay, so One of the courses of action that we want to do is that after identifying the issues, one way to tackle them is first to do mindfulness activities. Because since students are very anxious and very stressed out, first what we need to do before doing anything is to calm them down. They need to feel relaxed in order to do anything else. Once they are relaxed, we want to do more physical activities. For example, doing yoga, playing soccer, playing tag, you're it.
Okay. Okay, so those are good strategies actually. I will let the parent center know so they can tell to other parents and we can have their support. So thank you so much for this meeting. It really opened my eyes and I will take care of my son.
Thank you for coming. After presenting our role play, now we are going to talk about the final part of this presentation, which is to talk about our proposal as a whole. So as you might have been able to see in our role play, you might have been able to witness that students suffer from mental health issues. But not only them can suffer, but also every member of the school community too. As you might have been able to see, a parent was suffering from symptoms similar to PTSD. Not only that, it is well known that teachers can also suffer from mental health issues. There is a name for that, teacher burnout. So it is imperative to understand that these issues can affect everyone in the school community. Therefore, our proposal aims to promote positive positive elements that will try to foster the positive aspects of mental health. For example, as we were talking about in our role play, the focus of our role play was stress and anxiety. Therefore, the focus of our proposal will be to lower down the negative effects of anxiety and huge amounts of stress. For example, the mood tracker that we talked about in our role play, the aim of that activity is to help students to be able to identify the activities and the moments of the day or the week that trigger their anxiety and stress. By doing that, students will be able to identify these issues in order to tackle them properly. This means that we will tackle properly each issue differently. As Bernard states, one way to overcome these issues is to do mindfulness activities. This means that by doing mindfulness activities, as we mentioned in our role play, the students will be able to feel more relaxed and to be focused in order to choose how to properly address their issues, depending on the issue, obviously. And finally, as I mentioned at the beginning of this part, teachers can also suffer from mental health issues. But it is important to notice that teachers are one of the most important characters of the school. This means that just as language, teachers can model their emotions to their students, reflecting their emotions to them. And just as language, emotions can be very powerful too. So whether we like it or not, teachers reflect everything to students. Therefore, if our emotions are positive, we can foster positive aspects of their development and their learning process, just like our negative emotions can hinder and affect negatively their development and their learning process.
Since we are focusing on improving the socio-emotional aspect of the students and teachers as well, we want to propose a strength-based approach. This means that we want to focus on promoting a positive psychology. That means to look closely at the human potential that can be the outcome of collaboration between people. And this means that the importance of interpersonal relationships. According to Maslow, these relationships are made possible when we believe in each other's worth. Therefore, if we mutually support each other, we are going to reach the peak of the human potential. As teachers, we have to promote a caring environment, but it is important also to focus on students' strengths. In this sense, Radish, Seligman, and Parks mentioned that if we focus on students' strengths, they can have a better educational outcome than if we focus on their weaknesses. So in an educational setting, students can be more successful and engaged if we focus on their strengths. But how can we achieve this? Well, there are four ways of doing this. First is that we have to teach them to believe on their value and on their strengths. We have to show them which are the strengths of students, which are normally when students are feeling sad or they have anxiety or stress, they cannot see more than just that. And that's why we have to teach them to also be persistent with their work. We have to create this kind of resilience with them so they can overcome each problem instead of getting stuck in a stage. We have to make their effort seen as positive. Every effort that a student makes has to be seen as positive, because a student who is feeling sad and has anxiety and stress, if you as a teacher give bad feedback and only focus on his weaknesses, then the student is going to feel more stressed and more anxious because of his grade. And finally, we have to inspire students. This means that we have to make them aware and also inspiring them basically to be better and overcome and create this circle of resilience and work with others, because when they are stressed and feel anxiety, peer work and group work can be the best option to help a person that is feeling sad or alone, basically. So this was our second task. Thank you for listening.